Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Impact Series hosted by 40. Today I'm here with Patrick Chopson, who is the co-founder and CPO at covetool. So look, Patrick, thanks very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Oh yeah, it's really nice to be here and just chat about all things that are building and architecture and engineering related, things like that. Yeah.
So look, for those of you, Patrick, that are not familiar with the company, so if you could give the people watching this like an overview as to what the climate issue is that you're helping to kind of solve, and what covetool's solution to that problem is.
Oh yeah. So I mean, buildings are 40% of carbon emissions. So if we're going to solve climate change, we need to make the pieces of the pie that are biggest get as small as possible. And of course, architects and engineers are 0.003% of the world's population. So a quite small number of people control the biggest piece of the pie by their actions that they take every day. But unfortunately, everyone is kind of like operating in such a way that like their outputs are the inputs of the next person. So they don't really have a very good sense of like how their decisions affect the next guy. So what we're basically doing is we are eliminating email, and instead of connecting everyone together in a digital network, it's a web-based platform that allows everyone to like do, if you're an architect, you can do daylight analysis. Maybe the exhaust of the architect is the fuel for the engineer, and then there's also like contractors and also building materials suppliers that are all in this kind of web. So we're connecting to get everyone together in what I call a building information network. So it's like, how do we create a complete data model of a building so that we can solve the carbon problem with regards to buildings. Yeah.
Well, it's obviously a huge problem, isn't it? I know we spoke about this before, but so new buildings are generating a huge amount of carbon, right?
Oh yeah, and it's like, if you think about it, if you build a new building, if you renovate an old building, it would take 100 years to offset the carbon that was already in the old one. So a lot of times, we help people with renovations, just like repurposing an old building. But the new ones are definitely also, if you got to build new, you really want to make sure you're using low embodied carbon materials, low energy for the operations. Kind of like lower that carbon across the board, so that building is a net add to the world rather than a real big problem. Because like there's about, the mortality cost of carbon is about 4,000-ish kilogram. Well, I guess it'd be tons of CO2e per year. So it's like one person for every 4,000-ish tons of carbon. So that's kind of an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. And so how does the covetool help an architect with to kind of be more sustainable?
Sure. Like a lot of times people make decisions in the architecture space based on what they did on their last project instead of using analysis. So we kind of take what used to be highly specialized consultants that would take months. You can do all your daylight, energy, glare, water, carbon, all those different types of analysis in about 3 to 15 minutes. That would have taken, just in compute time, probably about 2 months before. Wow. So it kind of like is really lowering the barrier of entry, but it also allows architects to follow more design iterations, connect that to the engineer, and the engineers can do more iterations with geometry that's been prepped rather than kind of remodel it or something like that. Yeah.
Well, and I think you said before, by using your tool, it also allows architects to kind of look at what's there, for an existing building, and ways in which they can actually utilize that building more efficiently and actually kind of make that space more usable than, say, knocking it down and starting again.
Yeah, because like a lot of times folks, they're thinking, well, we just got to max everything out to be green, when in reality all the different parts you're building, like your HVAC system, your lighting, power controls, all those different pieces, they interact with each other, so it's a non-linear problem. So if you want to like solve it in the most cost-effective way, if you allow cost to be a part of that optimization, then you're allowing the most cheap solution to also be the most energy efficient one. Typically, it's about a 2 to 3% cost reduction is possible, and a 20 to 40% energy performance increase is definitely achievable on almost every building, which is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But equally, where there's a dual benefit, if they're, like you said, a cost saving as well as a hugely increased reduction in carbon. I mean, look, that's just win-win from everyone's perspective. So it kind of makes it a no-brainer.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely about the unit economics. Like if you understand that, like essentially a whole building is a giant spreadsheet on some level, then you're able to like think about, like, if I was going to make this sustainable, my goal should also be make it cost effective. So if we can do that, then we'll definitely generate the change we need, whether or not someone believes in climate change or not. If they all believe in money.
Yeah, that's the universal language. Okay, but I mean, look, it's been pretty impressive stats though, Patrick, in terms of what you've helped offset so far. So buildings designed by covetool have offset 33.7 million tons of CO2. I suspect that's what it says on your website. That I suspect it might be a bit higher than that by now. I mean, that's some pretty impressive numbers to be talking about.
Yeah, that's like 5x more than what Tesla did last year. So it kind of gives you a sense of the scale of what 20,000 architects using our platform. They were able to like make choices that lowered the carbon footprint of their design by a significant amount. And that's just only roughly maybe 20,000-ish projects. So like if we think about, there's millions of buildings being built, if we continue as we've been scaling rapidly, if we continue to scale that rapidly, you can see how the impact really gathers momentum, which is exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, look, companies, been going from strength to strength. Patrick, I know you've not been in existence that. When was the business founded?
Yeah, so we started off in 2017. Sandy Bahuja, who's our CEO, also my wife, and then Daniel Chopson, who's my brother. He's our CTO. So we all three got together, and we were like, this carbon problem with buildings is huge. There's got to be a way to make it cheaper. And I had some research work that I'd done in grad school, and we started to like build on top of that. So from there, kind of like, I think the real aha moment for us was that architects weren't as concerned about energy, but they definitely wanted their buildings to be beautifully daylit. So by combining daylight for the first time in a very fast, automated way, we're able to kind of suddenly unlock a lot of the other subsequent features that we've built since then are all around like bringing that automation back to the everyday design professionals, so they don't have to hire a consultant. Which is cool.
And look, I mean, it's obviously been going very successful as well. So what started with the three of you? I mean, I love that story, by the way. That it's that you're in business with your brother and your wife, but it's grown exponentially since then, right? So how big's the company? I know you've raised a huge number of amount of money as well.
Yeah. So we've raised about 36.5 million to date. One of our investors is actually Robert Downey Jr. from Iron Man. And because he really cares about the environment. So it was kind of cool to see him kind of like taking an interest in what we were doing, chatting up with our CEO. And then we also are backed by cove.tool, which is one of the largest investment funds in the world. They're one of the early investors like Facebook, Rivian, Apple, people like that. So clearly, people are understanding that this whole Scope 3, Scope 2 emissions is going to be it's a big deal now, but it's getting ever bigger by the year. And so from there, we've actually scaled our team to about 70-ish folks now. So we've been able to kind of like grow to the point where we're able to really build different pieces of the software in parallel, which is really great with all that funding. So now we can build whatever we want. But I think the biggest challenge is we obviously, there's another big player in the kind of whole interconnected app space, which is Autodesk, and they've kind of bought a lot of stuff over time.
Right.
But those things don't really connect well to each other, whereas we're building this like from scratch, a whole interconnected sequence of apps that kind of do the work. So I think like for a lot of times, our biggest hurdle is we just got to go in and show someone, yes, we actually did it, and it does actually work. It's kind of like the main thing that we overcome, which is kind of a cool thing to kind of think about. Like But there's definitely within architecture, engineering, construction, there's like they've been burned before. They're like, oh, we had big promises, but it never worked. So I think for us, that's kind of like the thing that we're always like showing people how it's, hey, it can be done.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And so look, last question for you, then Patrick, is like, what does the future look like? How big can the impact be that cove.tool is going to have?
Oh yeah. So I think the big thing that we're seeing now is that product manufacturers, they are the ones who are really driving the change around embodied carbon, because they have a lot of products that are commodities that are the same spec necessarily. So it's like maybe drywall or brick or whatnot, but then the actual energy that goes into each company making those products is different. So they actually have something different to sell on now. So that now with the recognition that like if you want to get loans have lower interest rates if the carbon impact is lower. So that's like climate risk is now financial risk. So a lot of these major corporations are realizing that it's in their best interest to have the lowest carbon profile, because then their cost of business is lower on all levels. So there's like this real push for that. So what we're building now is kind of the ability for manufacturers to embed cove.tool analysis inside their website to do qualification and analysis on incoming customer projects from architects and engineers, so that they can get that information correctly to their suppliers, predict how much material they're going to actually use in a year and what they need to produce, and just kind of like give more information in what has hitherto been like a very information scarce space where people are like, maybe I give them donuts, or maybe we go to a trade show. We don't know how people specify. So it's kind of like connecting the designers to the manufacturers is, I think, the next big thing. And we really see that that's about 100 million a year at least, kind of ARR kind of business. So we're really excited to see that taking shape in 2023.
Amazing. Well, look, Pat, it sounds like the journey is well underway. It's going to continue for a long time to come. Look, the impact is just going to grow and grow and grow, which is, I think, is absolutely fantastic. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Impact series, Patrick. And I mean, look, it'd be good at some point in the future, maybe we have you back on, we can see what that number looks like in terms of how many millions or billions of tons you've been able to help offset.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks, Patrick. I'll catch you soon.
Thanks.